What's up, team? It's Catherine, your host of the At a Total Loss podcast. So, you probably listened to Megan's episode, which is episode 5. That should be the video before this one on my YouTube channel. And I have multiple podcasts. You can listen to the audio on other platforms. But right now, you're seeing me visually discuss and break down the episodes. And I do this after every single one of them. So make sure you subscribe so you get notified when I put up another breakdown. They happen after the post of the live version. So, not the live version, the most recent podcast version, whatever. On that note, this is imperfect as hell. There's not one thing perfect about this. There's not one, I'm not even striving for that anymore, guys. This is the lost life. This is what it looks like now. I don't even know what day it is. I know what cycle day it is, but I don't know what day it is. So what I'm going to do is go over, like, I take notes as well when I go and I edit back, and I take notes on the things that I want to talk about or address. And I'm always down for you guys making comments. Keep them clean, keep them nice. This is a safe space. So that I can answer those for you, or I'd love to hear your take on things. A perspective is everything in this environment because we're all so different. And I don't really tell anybody what to do. What you're seeing is literally what I've done, my experiences, and how it's worked for me. I also have like a lot of conversations with lost moms. I'm very, very open and able to be reached on social media, particularly Instagram. So I'm consistently having conversations. So the good news is that I can kind of like not speak for anybody, but I could be like, I talked to this one in Texas and she said this. And so you don't feel alone. That's all this is about. If you've listened to the other breakdowns, particularly the breakdown of the introduction, how this came about was I needed to know and speak to other people who had been through this. That's it. So my support system is fantastic. I have a phenomenal husband, and my sister's my best friend, and she's actually on an episode as the support person. So these are all typically conversations with lost moms, but there will be some that aren't lost moms, but are super close to lost moms or experience it. So she kind of vicariously lived this through me. So she's on episode 6. Her name is Christina. So she's a fantastic support person for me. She's been there since day one, but long story longer, I needed to talk to lost moms. And so I connected with 3 of them here in Atlanta, and then one in Chicago, one in somewhere in Texas, 2 in Texas, actually. No, 2 in Chicago, 1 in Texas. And they were just all over the place. And those are the ones that really kind of got me through the first 3 to 5 months. And by no means was I like better, but even if the conversations weren't about Brody or about their kids, we were still having normal conversations about anything, but with the underlying knowledge that they are performing as a human that's experienced tremendous loss and trauma and, tragedy. It just made the experience and my personal perception or, acceptance of what they're saying just mean a little bit, just a little different. That's all. I mean, I still have my old friends, and I talk about this in the breakdown before this one. Still have your old friends, but lost moms are a different thing. They really are. So I'm sad you're here, but I'm happy we're connecting, and I hope this helps. Again, I'm putting it all out there for y'all not to feel alone. Find me on Instagram. I'm putting it out there too, at the Catherine Lazar. So I'm breaking down Megan's. Megan's does have a trigger warning, and I put it on the episode. Her baby in the background, about a year old, starts to cry. And if you're anything like me, that sound triggers a little bit. So hopefully you got that trigger and you were able to like bypass that a little bit if that's a trigger for you. I will say it's not as much of a trigger as it used to be. Like in the very beginning, right after loss, like milk would come out. Like, I mean, it's like, ugh, but like, my brain knew Brody was gone. My body didn't. So it actually physiologically, physically, biologically, scientifically, whatever, reacted to the sound and the sight of babies. So I hope that wasn't too triggering for you guys. But anyway, so her episode was great. Her insight on how she operated after and how she handled her grief, I think was really interesting. Everybody's different. I'm going to say that right now. This is just Megan's take on how she did it. You know, she too says that the community is really supportive. She unfortunately has a sister who also experienced loss. So I think that she immediately had some insight. For a lot of us, we don't know anybody. I didn't know anybody. And that's kind of like how this came about, because I realized that if I knew nobody, there's so many women out there who don't know anybody at all. And not only that, the people around them don't know anybody. So then, like, what do we do as a community to help each other if we just don't know? It's not something that's really talked about. We're working on that though. Listen to Anna's and Dominique's if you haven't yet. This is preventative awareness, things like that. We're going in, we're trying to change the conversation. But you know, it's such an interesting conversation because stillbirth is 1 in 160. That's a lot of people, but we really have not personally experienced it. Probably first of all, nobody talks about it. So maybe if someone did experience maybe a late term loss, they don't even mention it because it's almost like not received. So I hope that's changing. But Megan had a perfect pregnancy. Her girl had a pretty perfect pregnancy. I mean, she said something like checking the boxes. Checking the boxes. Mr. Brody was perfect every appointment. The only thing shifting for me was my blood pressure was going up. But it had always fluctuated, but it was never a problem for me. I guess nobody really was like, hey, Catherine, you need to look at this. I was a fitness professional, still am, but like super healthy. I was a dancer, professional dancer, trained dancer, as a ballerina. And then I realized I was too short. So then I became like a high school cheerleader and went and danced in the NBA and like went to LA and I did all these things. So I was like healthy, you know, and I'm doing air quotes if you're listening to this and not watching. It was creeping. It was creeping up where they weren't alarmed and they were toying with the word preeclampsia, almost like a preeclampsia. Because preeclampsia is like, I think your blood pressure gets like 160 over like 110 and just like rockets up from there. Mine never got that high or even that close to it, but it was still high and it was starting to go up every appointment. So at my 36-week appointment, the doctor said something like, we're going to induce you at 38 weeks. And I was like, what? And I was like, you know, you immediately start thinking like, I don't want anybody to, what's the word? It's like intervene. It's something like that. But like, I knew that if they were going to like interject and try to like get him out, I'd seen some horror stories and I was like super scared. In hindsight, I don't know how bad this would have been if I had a scheduled induction at 38 weeks. I mean, that means Brody didn't make it for another like 10 days. Not even less than that. So anyway, I'm not going there, but checking all the boxes, everything looked good. Growth was good. No, you know, just everything that means that it was a perfect pregnancy. And I was low risk, even though I had a mature gestational age, over 35. So it was like, okay, how is this so easy? Like I would go to the doctor and then I would come home and I would tell my sister, why is everyone so casual about my pregnancy? And she was like, well, there's women out there who like are really high risk and you don't seem to pose like any risks. So I was like, okay, well, I kind of wish they would spend more time with me. They would always say things like, do you have any questions? And I would be like, am I supposed to? Like, what? I didn't really. I was reading all the books and had the app and I had a bunch of friends. All my friends from college have like at least 3 children. So, and everyone seemed to like, besides, you know, first term and very, very, very early miscarriages, no one had really had any issues along the lines of like, you know, late term death. So yeah, Megan had the same thing and she went in for a routine and they say the dreaded words that they couldn't find a heartbeat. And one thing she said was that the doctor wasn't familiar with the machine. You guys, I get it. That's probably super standard. My OB now uh, knows how to do it. He does them himself, but that is extremely, I don't think that's very common. If your OB did all of yours, I want you to comment and let me know. Because right now we're trying to get the standard of care kind of changed a little bit and like say that doctors should be the ones doing the ultrasounds. So I just thought that was really interesting that he just did not know how to work the machine. And that must have been so terrifying for her to be like, is there really no heartbeat, or is he really doesn't know what he's doing? So also she goes on to, I mean, she obviously gets emotional, and I think it's a testament to, doesn't matter how far away you are from the loss, you will always get choked up and probably moved by the memory of those moments, those words. I mean, I talk about this, I think in the breakdown of Kelsey's, I went and saw accelerated resolution therapy, ART, kind of, like the rapid eye movement to kind of help me with that moment because it was so horrific. So she said what happens after they tell us. Some people I talk to go home and they sleep and they get their shit together and then they go to the hospital the next day. Some go straight to the hospital. Some people's appointments are at the hospital. It's just how the practice is. I went home to pack and I had to wait for a bed. I waited for about 8 hours for a bed. It was horrendous. And then though, like, to be honest, I was very stoic. I think I got sick. I vomited a few times but like, it was like I didn't have enough effort, energy to cry as hard as I needed to cry. It was the weirdest feeling. And right after they told me that Brody was dead, I left my body and I went completely into shock. My husband was not there with me. I had to call him. He was outside in the parking lot. Thank God he drove me, but he's outside in the parking lot because they wouldn't let him in because of COVID or whatever the hell was going on at the time. And he came in and I had to I had to hear the words again, which was insane. And he was wearing a mask, so all I could see was his eyes. It was just awful. And so he actually gives his he talks about it in episode 11. And I think it's episode 11. Michael talks about his experiences with that because it's really, really traumatic on the partners as well. So I went home and then I went to the hospital and then they started the induction, which I think from what I'm hearing is typical. But if they, send you right there, that's also like, you don't really have time to process, you just go. My experience was a little strange. I had to go into the waiting room. Nobody kind of escorted me. Somebody came out and was like, please follow me. She was very, very kind. Her name was Delka. I'll never forget it. And brought me into the room. And then as soon as she closed the room and she handed me the gown and everything, and it was obviously the bed. And then there was the little bed where you like measure the baby. And as soon as she shut the door, I lost it. I said, I don't think I can do this. And that's where I got the most strength in the entire world to get into that bed and proceed to do this. So Megan says something about like, it doesn't get easier, it just gets different. And I think that is an interesting statement. I mean, there are going to be very challenging and difficult times that you will always have, always, always have. And I think that it does get different. It just, certain things will get easier, but it'll never be easy. It'll never be easy. We just have to learn how to deal with it. We have to learn how to carry it. So that was really interesting that she said that. She did something that like, she decided not to have unhealthy habits. Her and her husband decided we're not going to have unhealthy habits whenever we're sad or we're grieving. What is my hair doing? We're going to not drink when we're sad. We're going to, do everything we can to feel better, go for a walk, choose wisely. And she said that worked for them. And I think that's really interesting. I think that if you're worried about essentially putting band-aids over things or developing really unhealthy habits to cope with your grief, then that's a good thing to do. I mean, I do know that I actually cut back on drinking wine. You guys know I love wine. For fear of just consistently keeping some sort of buzz in order to handle my grief. But at the same time, a hangover is the worst when you're grieving. It makes everything just so much worse. I mean, it's a depressant. So it was an interesting thing that her and her husband did, and it was a team effort for them. I think that it's challenging when your partner handles grief differently. If they have different coping mechanisms, then, it's going to be a process on figuring out what works best for you both. And we're both allowed to grieve separately, but having somebody on your side and doing it the way that you want to is super helpful, especially underneath the same roof. My husband and I decided that walks were going to be our thing. We go on Brody walks whenever I just can't seem to pull myself out. He's like, let's go, put on your shoes. And it helps. It really does help. She had like a one more year mentality, which is, I think, take away the time. Stand by. Sorry, little technical difficulty I had to check into. She said one more year mentality. And, you could put whatever timeline you want on that, one more month, 6 more months, whatever it is. But I think the whole idea of that is giving yourself some like a light at the end of the tunnel kind of thing, like a hope that you're just going to get to a certain point. And it helps make the time go by, if that makes any sense. I don't think you should set yourself up for, in a year, I'm going to feel amazing. I don't think that's it. And I think that's not a great, that's a lot of pressure, I think, though, but saying, let's just get through a year and then we'll make this decision, and then we'll see how we're feeling, and then we'll do this, and then we'll do that. And I think that's a good thing to do, because the next thing you know, the year mark is there. But don't put pressure on yourself. Grief is not linear. You've probably heard this 1,000 times. It's not. It doesn't travel along and get better as we go. It's just impossible. It's going to fluctuate. It's going to go up and down. You're going to revert. You're going to come back. You're going to be really good, and then you're going to be kind of okay. You're going to be bad, and then back to good, and then really good again. So the linear aspect is just not feasible. And I wouldn't put that pressure on yourself at all. I mean, I'm 8 months out at the time of this recording. I'm wildly different than I was, but I'm still not, back to my normal self. And I don't think that'll ever happen. I will say, though, I'm giving myself a year since his death, before I re-examine my career, or before I make any really big decisions, before I really start to put some things out there that I want to put out there, except for this, because you guys are just going to watch this whole thing. You're doing it with me. We're doing this together. So what I liked about Megan's conversation is that she said that she kind of changed her thought process. She said that she was thinking of Grace and what Grace would want. And I know this is kind of a sucky thing to hear, right? If you're in the trenches, there's 3 months out after death and after birth. No one's going to want to hear that. You want to hear that this sucks, that you're in hell, and that, it's not your fault, things like that. You're not thinking about, living a beautiful life, not yet, but you will start to think that way eventually. And some of you do. Some of you in the trenches, 100% are like, I'm, 2 weeks out and I'm doing all these beautiful things, in honor of my baby, because that's what you want, and that's great. Some people aren't like that. Again, we're all different. I think that saying positive things is helpful for a lot of people. I think one of the only ways that I have really been able to dig myself out of a grief spiral is by picturing my baby and him being like, you have to stop this, Mom. My life cannot be a puddle of tears. That's not Brody's mother. That's not his legacy. I want to be an image of inspiration and hope and light. And I can't do that hysterically crying in the fetal position consistently all the time. Don't get me wrong. I feel like I want to do that a lot. But the goal is to live how your baby would want you to live, how you would be if they were alive. And if they were alive, we would still have some moments. Absolutely. Postpartum, there's hormones, there's fear as a new parent, there's guilt as a new parent. There's so many things. So it's okay to fluctuate in those emotions when they're dead, because you do that if they were alive. But life keeps moving and you have to figure out how to do this, because guess what? Grief and trauma don't kill you. They just make this really tough to want to live. That's dark. I know. You hear me though. You feel me. Um, it keeps moving, and you have to figure out how to keep moving with it. And I think keeping your baby in mind and what they would want for you is really helpful. At least for me, it is. And at least for Megan, it is. So there's two of us that it works for. And, it's something to think about if you haven't thought about it. If you feel like you need to grieve and cry and do all these things consistently to honor your baby, I understand that completely. But there's got to be a way to keep living and not be so heavy all the time. And your baby would want that. It's tough. I know. So there's also a balance of grief and happiness. We believe in the and life, grief and joy, sadness and happiness. You're going to live that life from now on. Only happiness, not good. Only sadness, not good. We have to find that both, that medium, that balance of both in order to try to live this and do this, and there's no right or wrong way. I mean, and it can be lopsided, absolutely. But we want to try to find the balance of grieving and happiness and living that joyous life, even though we're sad. And we can do that. A lot of people on the outside won't get it. They'll be like, oh, look, she's living her best life. She's over it. And you're like, no, I'm still screaming. I still miss my child. I'll forever miss them. There's literally a piece of me missing. It's gone and it's not coming back. And you can't worry about that, though, about what it looks like on the outside, because we understand it. Lost moms get it. But people around you aren't going to get it. You can't take offense, because I think everybody, it's just my opinion, everybody wants you to be better, and it makes them feel better if you're better. And if you're showing that you're smiling, you go to a wedding, you go to a birthday party, or you go out and you have dinner with your husband or your partner, or like, there's so many things that you could do in life to try to like enjoy it. And from the outside looking in, it looks like you're over it. And we all know that is not true. You can't go around correcting everybody. You can gently say, I'm missing my child, but he's in my thoughts and he's with me now. And this is how I'm trying to coexist with grief and joy, and it's up to you how you want to do that. Some people are super vocal on social media. Some people are super vocal in person, or texts or emails, however you want to, going back to work. Some people are going to be like, oh, she must be great. She's going back to work. What else you got? You got to go back to work. Like, we don't have a choice in that matter. We have to go back, as hard as it is, but you can have that balance, and it's okay to do that. I know at first you feel guilty for enjoying things, having that sip of wine, or going on a trip or a vacation, feeling guilty for laughing or smiling. Like you're not allowed to do that because your baby's dead. I had guilt over eating. He can't eat, so why should I? And it was bad, guys. It was bad. But I had to quickly learn that it's okay to live. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to try to find light, trying to find joy in whatever capacity that means for you. So Megan did something that I did. She unfollowed people on social, and I muted and I unfollowed. And there's even a couple I blocked, because when you are in a space that you are fragile, I say it feels like your skin is inside out. You are so heightened. Your senses are just, you could break it any second. The last thing you need is something coming out of somewhere that just really crushes you. So I cleaned up my Instagram. I mean, I had people I know very closely just throwing out all these pictures of babies and videos. And I was just like, I cannot deal with this. Pregnancy announcements, and people who were pregnant with me at the same time having their healthy babies, literally like days around when Brody was born. So I muted. I unfollowed, because sometimes those muted people were popping up in collabs and stuff. And I was like, ooh, unfollowed. I blocked, because there's certain people that love to drop you a heart emoji with their newborn infant in their profile picture. And now I'm better with it. I'm like, but right after, that shit hurts so bad. It was bad. And I know people mean well, and I know people but just not having any words for me, but dropping just like a heart, is just kind of like, did that make you feel better? Because I don't feel better. And I'm not dissing anybody. Again, nobody knows. And you may be totally fine with someone just dropping you a heart, but, I can't imagine what you're going through as they have a picture of their newborn, they're expecting, and then their little kid next to them. I'm like, try. Just try. Yeah. Yeah. And I've been really trying, and I talked about this. I think I broke down this Dominique's episode, the one before this one. I love how I do this. Like, where is it? Is it up? It's not, might be up there, depending on the I have tried really hard not to be a jerk. Really hard, because I know that my mentality is going to change over time. So like, if I want to yell, scream, and throw you out the window in the first month, 8 months out, I'm pretty much just like, God, you are so not worth my time right now. Like, I can't even lose one amount of tear on you because I'm so dehydrated. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh God. Point is, if you muted, you blocked, and you deleted, do not feel bad, or muted, unfollowed, and whatever, blocked, do not feel bad. Maybe you'll be back. But like right now, you need to do what you need to do. Absolutely. So Megan does discuss PAL, or PAL, pregnancy after loss, and what that looks like. She fought for her family. She was pregnant almost immediately. She had a baby exactly a year after Grace's death. And this is something that is up to everybody, each individual. I believe I asked when I could try again from the ICU after Brody was born. The doctors must have been like, what the hell's wrong with this girl? But I talk about this a lot. I even posted on Instagram about the odd things that we do. That's not that odd. We all ask immediately, can we get pregnant again? Right after his death, I was like obsessed with the idea of trying again. And they gave me the go at 3 months. And by the time that 3 months hit, I was like, no, I only want Brody. I don't want any other children. I will mourn him he's my only child forever. Do not want anybody else. We weren't trying to get pregnant month 4 because they wanted me to do some more testing. But because my cycle was jammed up in a mess, my period was late, and I thought I was pregnant, and I flipped. I was like, I don't want a kid. Like, I can't have another kid. Brody's my child. So, but then when I finally got the actual clear to try and it didn't work, I was devastated. So it changes. Like, I'm so ready to be a mother to a living child. And so it changes. Some people wait a year or 2. Some people jump right in and go immediately. Some people have trouble. I mean, Brody was super easy, it was a happy accident, and a lot of us have happy accidents, but then, there's trouble after that, and it's not as easy the next round. We're all so different, and every cycle is different. Some even go do gestational carriers or surrogates, guys. Like, I mean, if you feel like you can't ever carry again after your loss, that's so normal. If you want to carry again, or you're carrying now, or you carried one more time and you don't want to do it ever again because it was too terrifying, totally normal. I mean, Megan discusses that, how hard it was. She had to fight, really, though, to get some more attention, and to get induced at a certain time. And that's another thing. A lot of, I don't know if it's states. I have to look this up. If you know the answer to this, is it states, counties? Is it practices? I know that here, I believe it's 38 weeks before they'll induce. And however, I've been told by my maternal fetal medicine and my new OB that if they need to do it earlier, particularly 37, then they will. So I think it's a matter of like the circumstances. And I've been told if I had gone in at 36 and a half weeks and he was in distress, there's a chance that they would have had to go get approval for an early induction, and it may have taken too long, and that sort of thing. So tell me what your policies are where you are. I I'm fighting. Like, I know a lot of women, especially in Atlanta, who have fought for a certain induction date, and you have to be your own advocate. You have to. There's some stories I've heard that if they didn't advocate for themselves, they would have had a second stillbirth. Literally. You have to listen to Anna's. She had an infection, and it was like, if they, and they denied, they did not want to believe that she was sick. And she's like, no, no, something's wrong with me. Lo and behold, they found the infection, which could have potentially been life-threatening for her baby. And you have to advocate for yourself. And if I'm scaring you, you should be. You're going to be scared about something no matter what. But when you rather be scared and do your homework and push and advocate, and the flip, what is the flip? Something bad happens. So advocate for yourself. We all have to now. I think when I was first pregnant, it was my first pregnancy. I was like, whatever you say, docs. I'm having questions about stuff like, why are you pushing that on me? And what is the purpose of this? And shouldn't you guys be doing this? But if they said it, I just, kind of went with it. I was in a very big practice, and it was connected to the second largest baby hospital in the country. And so it was like, you guys know your shit. That's changed. Now you're going to listen to me. And if your doctor doesn't listen, you get a new one. This is where we're at. So she pushed for it and was her own advocate. And, I think that could have saved Mary's life. If you don't advocate for yourself, who is going to? Because you're just a number again, So she talks about working out. So this is actually like a really big topic of conversation. I talked to Bree about this in episode 10. Y'all should check this out. She's a fitness instructor, personal trainer who created a workout program for lost mamas. This is what's going on here. We talk a lot about emotional and mental well-being. We really need to talk about physical. I'm talking from my experiences and the conversations that I've had with others. So Megan was really big into CrossFit, and that was her thing. She loved it. And then, when you are trying to achieve a certain aesthetic, it is your lifestyle. And then you get pregnant, your aesthetic changes, your body changes, and it's not under your control at all. And then after, you're just kind of like, I would like to get my body back. And Megan, says that she probably should have not gone as hard as she did working out. There's circulation issues that she then had with Mary. She was only, what was it, like 3 months out before she had Mary. So I haven't done the math. That's probably not even. So I, before she got pregnant with Mary, she was not that far out from her first pregnancy. So for me, I was a fitness instructor and a fitness professional. And I also was kind of like sort of a fitness model. And so diet, weight, strength, physical aesthetic was a big deal. It's been my way of life. I was a professional dancer for college as well as the MBA. It was always a conversation. So when my body started to go crazy, and I'm only 5'1", and at the time I got pregnant, I think it was like 110 pounds. By the time they wanted me to put on like 35 pounds, I was like, what? What I did though was like really enjoy my pregnancy. I ate the bagel if I wanted it. I had spaghetti 3 times a day if I wanted it, not every day, but like the days where I couldn't keep anything else, kind of everything else made me queasy, anything that I could eat. I also ate only cooked things. Like I was super weird about like raw salads and all that stuff. So cooked things. So if there's pizza on the menu, I'm getting pizza because I don't trust anything else, and I did pretty good. I ate like a normal person, certain amount of calories, kept it super clean, make sure there's no toxins, no drinking, no caffeine until probably later on. And I only had like 200 milligrams. No, less than that. I had probably like 4 ounces at a time, if that. It's crazy if you let coffee go and then you have a little bit, it actually works. And then you get addicted and then it doesn't work anymore. So body image struggled for me. I was getting bigger and bigger, and I didn't even know what was happening to my body anymore. And as much as I loved, I did love being pregnant, it was challenging to watch your body expand and not really know what to do. And then when he was gone, I had this crazy body that was the heaviest it's ever been and not healthy for my frame and not healthy for me in general. And so it's like, what does that mean now? My workouts are kind of to get the weight off, but not in the weird sense I used to do it, super strict calorie deficit. Anything that would assist me in speeding up my metabolism, intermittent fasting, like tons of cardio, working out, 5 times a week. That's what I was doing before. And then after loss and after birth, can't really do that. And I'm still, my weight is still not ideally where I'd want to be, but I'm doing it the healthy way. I still have that extra 12-ish to get off. And it's hard. I'm trying to do it healthy, trying to conceive. And Megan had the same issue, the body image issue is tough. And if you have that, don't feel guilty. Don't feel guilty. We're human beings and we're women. So if you see the belly and, at first it's super sad that the baby's gone, they're just not in there anymore. And so getting rid of the belly to me was like really traumatic. I didn't want to. It's the only sign that he existed. But now, 8 months later, it did start to just kind of come off itself, especially when I started walking. But my aesthetic, I no longer strive for this aesthetic that it's not going to happen right now. And that's okay. And it sucks because I know how you feel, some of you, if you were like, I'm super overweight, but I have no babies, so nobody knows that's why. Call it vanity. I don't know. It's a thing. So don't feel bad. You just can't feel bad. So you're normal. And if you think I'm a jerk because of what I'm saying, this is how I am. This is how it goes. I'm not alone. Neither are you. So coping, she's working out as far as coping. And I think that's a good thing. Everyone finds their method of coping. I love reality TV. I do. Like this mess, I can zone out and watch that for a while. Good to go. Walking is coping. A glass of wine is probably coping a little bit. Talking to Brody's coping. Traveling is coping. Stuff, we find our own things, so however you need to cope, just however you need to cope. Humor. I laugh. I make dumb, stupid jokes. Look at what's happening here. This is me coping. My podcast is me coping. This YouTube is me coping. Talking on Instagram is me coping. This is just my journey. So you do whatever you need to do. Megan also says she separated the 2 days, the day Megan died. Sorry, the day Grace died, and the day that Grace was born. And celebrating Grace's second birthday, she was able to do that as a beautiful day, absolutely celebrate the life. And that's the thing. And I talk about this earlier, another breakdown. Brody's death is a horrific tragedy where no good can come out of that. But his life, absolutely some beautiful things have come out of his existence. Let that sink in. So celebrating his life, his birthday, his life is what I strive to do, is what us lost moms strive to do. Celebrating the death, I feel for those who found out they were gone and were born on the same day, but I still think you have the opportunity to celebrate their life. And it's not weird to celebrate it. It really isn't. That's what we do when we're living another life on this, another year on this planet. Well, they existed. They were alive. In order for them to die, they were alive in your belly. And some of you, maybe even hours after birth. And we are allowed to celebrate them and what good they brought to us. So Megan and I have something in common as far as losing our first. There are some that have lost second, third, fourths, but when you lose your first, I think the devastation level is hard to explain. Because all of your children from there on out will not have a big brother or a big sibling, you know? The next one won't, at least. And the what ifs would have happened, you know, where your life would have gone, what you had envisioned would have happened, you know, the quietness in the house is just so deafening. So it's tough all the way around. And I would never compare, be like, it's worse for those who lost their first. No, it sucks for all of us, you guys. It just does. But I hope Megan's episode helped. I hope that, you know, you got some things out of it. I'm more than willing to hear questions that you guys have. Leave them in the comments. You can even say this question's for Megan, and I can get her that answer, or get her that question and get the answer from her. I, want to hear your take on a lot of this. Again, we're not alone. This is just, you're not alone in anything that you're doing or feeling. And we're all weird in a sense. So feel free to let me know your thoughts and your experiences. I'm still learning. I learn from everybody, which I think is super helpful. And I always get something from it. So again, thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. I know how hard it is to listen to this stuff, but I hope that you do realize you're supported. You're not alone, that your baby is loved. Your baby is recognized and acknowledged. They're here with us. And they always will be. So I'm so sorry that you're here. I'm so sorry this has happened to you. We're in the shittiest club you could ever be in, but I am happy that you're here and that we're connecting. And I'm here if you need me, and I need you to take care of yourselves. Until next time.